I know I've been away for a couple of months, not a couple of months, maybe a lot, but regardless, this is the first video of 2026. Welcome to the cell group, and without taking too long time with the intro, I'm just gonna jump right into it. And the topic of today's video is control your own narrative. And you can apply this statement in different case scenarios, but today especially your own narrative. And obviously need to be detailed, provide details about the situation, because like I believe that no advice is absolute, pretty much, yeah, because everything applied to the right context or the wrong context can, depending if applied to the right context or the wrong context, it can completely change the meaning of whatever the advice is, and from doing good you end up doing bad and vice versa. And so no half truths, and I'm gonna be specific about it. For example, if you're in your early 20s, or maybe like you're young enough, or let's be you live in your 30s, and you see somebody who's doing better than you need to realize that like not everybody is playing the same game, and not everyone has been handed the same cards, and you truly need to get to know thyself, as I usually say, because you need to be realistic with yourself, the situation you're in, the circumstances, and you need to assess your situation correctly. But more importantly, because obviously majority of the population would never get to this level, which is like the first stage, what I like to define it as. But the other stage is commitment. The commitment is the hardest thing to do, because, for example, you work one job and you make fairly like a good amount of money per hour, do you understand? But obviously in that job you can't really work any more days. So for instance, you just decide to find another job. So you find the other job, you start working. Obviously for the first month, sweet, because obviously in that mood I need to grind it out and all of that. So you put in work and eventually pays off. But at a certain point, the second month, then you start like, there are certain days they have to do double shift, to go here first and then to the other place, so it gets a bit hard, and you're like, And that's where the main mission and commitment comes in place, because obviously if you have a plan, for example, you want to start a business, and because obviously you need to keep in mind, because like obviously depending on who's watching, there are like Muslim, Christians, atheists. So for instance, let's say a Muslim is watching, and a Muslim is not playing the same rules as a Jew or a Catholic, you understand? Or a Catholic is not playing with the same rules as a Jew or a Muslim, you understand? For example, let's say for you it's easy, what you plan, what you speak with your family is like, I need to get to a certain age, get married, and then get a mortgage and pay off the house. But then you would be engaging in usury, do you understand? So, and why I'm making these points, because these are like big choices that require commitment, and at the same level, first stage you need to get to know things, blah 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 blah, you need to decide, and then you need to commit. And for example, maybe a Jew has no problem using more shady kind of practices to make more money, because that's what they believe in, you understand? That's what the incentives are. So first of all, when you see somebody has something, never envy them for what they have. At the most you can get is inspired, you understand? If not, you must be indifferent, because you decide what you consider and you get what you decide to focus on. Simple as. And you need to understand that everything that somebody has, a price has been paid for it, and it never came for free. And even if you think that they got that and they can prove that it was free of charge, I guarantee that they paid the price elsewhere and else how, you understand? So yes, control your own narrative, know about like your spot. For example, now like I see a lot of people that, even with the whole geopolitical situation, like World War III on the verge to happen, and I see people still going Starbucks, drinking their drink, like vlogging this and that, like while in reality they're clueless about the geopolitical situation. Probably like the end of the petrodollar is imminent, and people they're saving money, putting in the bank, not knowing that overnight the inflation will blow everything to a ratio from 1,000 to 1. And probably, let's say for example, you have family members, they go to work waiting for the pension to land, understand? Now like finally 1 year left, then they go to the pension and boom, the whole fund is blown. And now everything that they've worked hard for in their life is gone. And I know it might sound a bit harsh, but the problem is theirs, and it is your fault. Because obviously I'm not telling you need to go fight for it like physical sense, but you need to prepare, because obviously everything is a ratio. There are like people that are gonna make it and people that are not gonna make it, and that's how life is gonna be forever until the end of times. And if you think like that this kind of progress can happen, then you're absolutely clueless. And yeah, with that being said, you need to control your own narrative. You are at the verge of like this massive conflict. There are plenty of opportunities for you can capitalize on. And why do I say that? Because like I wasn't born rich, but yet my mentality or my ways of thinking can lead me into position or even discussion with certain people and actually provide value, do you understand? And that it didn't come just because like I was born this way. I mean, I had to put in work. For example, when normally people, for example, even the thing, you see certain people when they eat, they watch YouTube, right? There are certain people when they watch it, they see like Mr. Beast video, and he's like a grown 25-year-old man, and you're like, bro, you're 25, you're watching Mr. Beast while you're eating your cereals. Like, be serious, you understand? Start getting knowledge, I don't know, like read about like, I don't know, politics, or you don't like even, for example, hear about Machiavelli's strategy or hear 48 Laws of Power. I know these are very mainstream, but like you need to get into it like somehow for some reason. But the hardest bit is about having curiosity, because if you don't have curiosity, you can never like dive deeper into the topic. And basically that's pretty much it. Like at the core of it is always about like curiosity. If you're not curious, like then you're cooked pretty much. Because like I'm pretty sure you heard about stories about somebody who became very successful based on their grind. Somebody who was very poor, but then they put in work, they studied, they read, they consumed content, they kept, you understand, they persisted, and then in the end, like they hit the right spot. Same thing. Now, like you can see, I don't know, obviously some people might be like, they say this conspiracy or this speculation, but even for example, like the financial system that they're trying to pass the Clarity Act to then adopt crypto, and maybe like for example XRP is a bridge currency and stuff. Obviously like all of these kind of things, I'm just mentioning things that I'm hearing about and people that they say you could truly change your life and become wealthy. And especially if you're at this age, for example, you flip burgers in a McDonald's and you hate your fucking life, you need to change it, because regardless of what you do your life, you're stuck there. If you work like a minimum wage job or a regular job, don't think you're gonna just like all of a sudden get promoted to team leader making 50 pence or 50 cents extra, then wow, your problems are solved. If you just like go and you count the 50 pence with the hours, probably like they don't even count all the hours that you do, even if you clock in or clock out. So even the small bonus for like countless of extra responsibilities is just like frying your brain. You're literally, your soul is getting harvested. That's why you need to control your own narrative. It doesn't matter if you find a sweet spot where, like, I don't know, you clean toilets, or like you work in a kebab shop, or you, I don't know, you do like warehouse, or like anything, like you work in a supermarket, anything, and you can manage to find the right balance for you to start thinking about your 5 to 10 year plan, and then truly take action and commit to it. Nothing will cost you. Trust me that nothing will cost you, because you are there regardless, do you understand? Like you're getting cooked. It's like, for example, like you're getting cooked. As simple as every day you're getting cooked. So you wanna tell me that like if you're broke, you're always struggling, you never have savings. Why not, for example, like lock a part of your salary in a pot regardless, even if you owe people money, because the very first rule is always pay yourself first, because if you don't pay yourself first, like how you gonna do anything? That's the same rule when the plane goes and the oxygen mask comes out. What they tell you? First put oxygen in you and then put maybe the oxygen on somebody else. That's the same thing. That's how you keep people alive. That's where you can actually provide value. You understand? You need to control your own narrative. Stop looking at people, maybe like somebody like invites you to a restaurant where it costs like a bit, like that, or a cow, this and that, and you know deep down you can't afford it. And if for some reason you can get moved by these little things, then that means like you're still a little boy. And you're not ready for life. If you ever find somebody who's truly disciplined, he's got like his things together, then you're gonna get smoked. And the reality of it, you know, like, because obviously I'm just a random guy yapping on the internet for now. I'm nobody. you understand, on the internet. But I've seen that like plenty of times, that like the truest killers are like regular people. Some people, probably you see somebody in the park even dressing goofy, but you see him running. That's crazy. Or for example, I use this example when I used to come back like from work. It was like around 3:30. I would always catch the two buses. So the first bus goes and I have to stop at this bus stop and change and take the next bus. Sometimes the waiting time, if everything was good, maybe like might be like 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes maybe 30 minutes. And I swear to God on my life, I've spent 3 years working in that place, taking the same route, and every day there was this not old lady. It was like probably like a black lady. I don't know if she was African or like Caribbean, and she had like I don't know, probably like an injury in her leg, but she would like run always. Understand, struggling. And sometimes it was raining, sometimes it was snowing, and for example, like if you went in the morning like to a veggie market and to buy like some fruit or veggies, and you see her like shopping, you would never say or think that this very old woman that she's limping would give you shit when running. And I'll tell you why. Because then after that, when she would run, goes, and I would keep waiting for the bus. Then I would catch the bus when it comes, and the bus goes, and by the time that I would keep going, I would see her like running. And I'm telling you, for years, every day that I was there, if I worked extra days and I was like so an extra day in that week at that bus stop, she would be always there. That's why I'm telling you, these true killer people, you don't really know like who they truly are, and you need to become one of them. You see, that mentality is crazy to understand. I know there's plenty of you, like probably you have like women in your family, maybe your mom, maybe your sister, I don't know, like if you compare her to this auntie, you say like, what the hell? Let's say for example, like now there was like something happening and you need to run away, and with breath and stuff. That's what I'm saying, you don't control your narrative. Your whole life since you were born, you're just like a collateral damage, basically collateral effect to everything. You know, when the government prints a lot of money and then they need to just like dump it on people and, you know, like raise taxes, you are one of many. You might argue, oh, don't you pay taxes? Yes, but at least like I'm actively doing something to get out from that situation. Because like if you have like a business and money comes in and out, and you understand, it's not the same as having a job, being like a brain rot, like a goyim sitting there with a goy slop diet doing nothing. You need to control your narrative, and it's never too late. And one thing that put my soul at ease is that, let's say for example, you can spend your 20s grinding and hustling because you know you're like behind compared to people, but not because like you truly like are worth less than them, but because simply you're just like spawned in this like lobby of life, which is your family, the situation, the circumstances you are. That's why you need to start believing in yourself like more. You need to, especially nowadays, there is a lot of there is a lot of content out there, and you need to filter. You need to find the like right people that you think you see yourself with. Because in the end, it's all about like transparency and being like candid with yourself. Do you understand? That's what it is. You need to be always in alignment. You need to know thyself. That's why this whole channel is called Thyself Group. And that's why that's all I'm about, because I've been in the situation of being lost. I didn't have guidance and I had to figure it out. And eventually, like throughout the whole years growing up, especially in my 20s, like I've always found like people to be respecting me and like having like high regards towards me. You understand? Because I always respect obviously people back, but you truly have something to discuss with them. You understand? You can kind of challenge their mind. You can like, some people, obviously if somebody ever hates you because like you talk like this, is simply like at the bottom level of insecurity. You understand? So like there is insecurity, like the bottom is 100, and obviously the higher you go, then you transition. You understand? It's the same as a higher chakra. You get in line, you wake up, and all of this kind of thing, depending on the different context of what you believe, obviously. Because in the end, like we can say the same thing in different ways. But that's why like I try to be like as concise as I can, but obviously I drift a lot when I talk. But if you follow my drift, eventually like you go with me in my mental trip, and then you understand what I'm kind of talking about. But with that being said, for example, going back to this kind of thing about the conflict, you need to understand Obviously, I'm not telling you go buy crypto, go buy gold, go buy silver, whatever. But you need to understand that if you ever worked hard for something in your life and now you have it, it can be taken away from you, and you need to be in that mental state that you could be okay with it. Understand? You need to become the kind of person that when you control your own narrative, you know that you can be placed anywhere in the world and you would make it out. You understand? But obviously, if you're, I don't know how to say it, because obviously nobody's gonna teach you survival skills, and nobody can, because like you watching this video can say, okay, this guy makes sense, what he's saying is kind of right, blah 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 blah. But obviously you need to have that independent kind of thinking when you can get to that level of saying, okay, now I can use his advice with my own knowledge and then get it. You understand? But yeah, control your narrative, position yourself correctly, because the times ahead are gonna be very hard. And yeah, as I said before, this is the self group, and I don't want to keep the video too long, but instead just subscribe, because I'm gonna be very consistent now with the content. A lot is happening and I've got a lot to say. See you, my friend. Adios.